One of the most beautiful things about Call of Dragons is that the meta is always changing and people are finding out better builds, better pairings, better talents, better everything for their commanders and always trying to maximize their potential. So stick around in this video because I'll be helping you reach the best pairings right now in Call of Dragons for S1 Plus going into Season 2, which is right around the corner at next update. What is up guys, MEOWER here back with a brand new Call of Dragons video. Before we get started, be sure to drop a like, don't forget to subscribe because we'll be releasing new and updated guides for every single commander that will be mentioned in this video because the meta in Call of Dragons is ever changing. And with that, and by that, I mean that pairings are always changing, even though we're not getting that many new commanders the past couple of months, but a lot has changed in the pairings and what is good and what's not as good as before, especially as more people tend to max out their accounts, more people tend to upgrade, get stronger, get access to everything, and test things more frequently. We find out that some pairings start working better than others that we used to run before, and that we thought were better, but turns out there are better alternatives. So in today's video, we'll be discussing the best pairings that I think are the most optimal way to play right now in the open field in Call of Dragons. Of course, this is updated for S1 Plus, and I assume it will remain the same for the first part of Season 2, assuming that the war pets are not completely meta changers, but of course I'll keep you all updated. But for now, till S2 comes out next month, in the update, we will be showcasing the pairings that I believe right now are the meta and the best performers in every single category. That being said, let's get started. First of all, the way we're going to be structuring this video is that we're going to be discussing, for example, mages. We're going to be showcasing the pairings and the best artifacts suited with those pairings that, in my opinion, will help you wipe the floor with your enemies in the open field. So, we'll be starting off with mages. Mages, of course, the best pairings right now is without a doubt Lilia Velen. The reason for that, they just have too much synergy with each other with the raw DPS they provide, the raw damage factor provided from their skills, that insane AoE, and that ability to control the field with Velen slows, for example, and having an artifact such as the what's it called? Inferno Flame equipped on Lilia is gonna make your DPS just skyrocket and you're gonna be nuking people left and right. Of course, you can alternate between Inferno Flame and Phoenix Eye. It is dependent on your current situation and your preference, though when Breath of Gigantus eventually comes out, it will be the best option for now. But till then, Phoenix Eye or Inferno Flame, both very flexible, both up to you and depending on your current progress. If you have a level 5 Phoenix Eye, for example, and a level 1 or level 2 Inferno Flame, then Phoenix Eye will always be better. Inferno Flame starts granting more value when it is at level 3 or level 4 at best, because it starts to provide higher damage taken and higher damage taken percentage and higher damage dealt percentage, which overshadows Phoenix Eye's maximum of 5%. Of course, there are replacements for each March, so there is a replacement for Waldir in the March, assuming you don't have Lilia or you don't have Velen. Waldir fits fine. Atheist is a replacement as well, but I don't like. Alwyn. Alwyn is a replacement right now, but I feel like he's kind of fallen off with more people getting access to more troops, meaning AoE is just that more valuable. Even though he is a CC machine, you can make an argument to run a couple of mage marches, with one being your main DPS and the other being a utility slowness march, for example, built as Atheist. Waldir, all Waldir Atheists, depending on how you mix and match them, though I don't recommend mix and matching in Season 1 Plus, especially legendary commanders with epics, because the disparity now with the introduction of 5 stars and 6 stars is just way too big and the power budget has become completely different, and both of them being in completely separate realms. Of course, that is it for the mages. Let's get started with the archers. So the archers by far have become my most favorite march. I even switched to Wilderberg just to abuse archers right now, as archers by far, in my opinion, one of probably the strongest troop type at the moment when built correctly and used properly in the open field combat. Of course, they also have the highest DPS potential when it comes to behemoths as well. Right now, Syndrome Freygar has completely shattered my expectations. Both of them are amazing with each other. If you leave them unchecked in the open field, they will melt any and everything. So I'll probably start working on my Syndrome very soon. Right now I'm just working on my Thea, but that's a topic for a different video. Syndrome Freygar just absolutely melts everything right now. I've seen so many crazy reports. They're melting people left and right because not so many people notice them, and people tend to avoid archers by nature, even though they're squishy as hell. So you always want to target them if you see them, because if you leave them unchecked, and especially if they have the Gorecrest artifact, they will wipe the floor with your marchers. The raw DPS these two have together, especially when they're both awakened or close to being awakened, is absolutely insane. Hands down, the strongest DPS March by far in Call of Dragons. Single target, of course, because they just do so much single target damage, but they will not be able to have the same survivability as our next Archer March, which is Husk Kinara. Now, I'm starting to see many Husk Kinaras pop up, and for good reason. Husk Kinara, it turns out to have better synergy than Nico Kinara, for example, or Kinara Nico. The reason for that is because of Husk's awakened skill. This only works if Husk is awakened, and so is Kinara. He grants so much crit chance along with Kinara's counterattack and insane raw stats. He gives some really nice bonuses, flat raw stats, and everything that Kinara needs to shine, and they just become a tanky counterattack menace that, if left unchecked, will start pulling a lot of hurt, and as more people tend to focus it, it kind of melts everyone with the amount of counterattack it has. So it's kind of like a March that you don't know how to deal with. Are you supposed to ignore it? Are you supposed to attack it? Especially if Husk goes for the full precision tree build, which I will showcase right now. This build makes this duo really shine and put in a lot of punishment and a lot of hurt. This is the build. This is one of the builds which abuses spirited response. Big shout out to my friend Legionist for showing me this one. The other build just heavily invests onto precision tree. Both of them work fantastically, both of them have insane DPS potential, but most importantly, both are really hard to kill, and they abuse the counterattack mechanics so well that you just don't know how to deal with them. There are, of course, some replacements for those marchers, being Nico. He's kind of fallen off. I do need to update my tier list for the best commanders right now, which I will soon. So be sure to subscribe to keep an eye on that. And there is also Guanwin. Now, those two only work together, which are Syndrome and Freygar. They only work together. They don't have many replacements and many flex picks. Of course, Husk works great with Freygar, and Kinara also works really good with Freygar, but Syndrome has meh synergy with Husk. It's not recommended at all. If you're going to use Syndrome without Freygar, don't bother. Syndrome is really dependent on Freygar, but Freygar is not really that dependent on Syndrome. Of course, you got replacements as Nico, Guanwin. Both of them can fit and match with Kinara. They can match with Husk. They can match with Freygar, but they cannot match with Syndrome. So that is it for the archers. Next up, infantry. Right now, of course, the biggest mommies of all mommies, Big Mommy Madeline, by far the best infantry lead in both the open field, the garrisons, everything. Like, is there anything she can do? I mean, come on, look at her. She's so perfect. I love you, Madeline. Probably one of my favorite commanders in the game. The biggest mommies of all mommies. And, of course, her pairing either Nika or Garwood. I know, Garwood is back in the meta. I know, right? Insane! Garwood, one of the most useless commanders in the game, is crawling his way back into the meta. And there are a few reasons for that, for both those marches. If you're in a bigger server and you're meeting much more T5s, it's actually more worth to run your infantry as Madeline Garwood instead of Madeline Nika. Don't crucify me for this, but there is a main reason for this, because infantry's role over time become purely tankiness. Madeline Nika does take a lot of punishment, but it also dishes out punishment as well, but it doesn't survive as well when you start meeting more and more T5 players, as more and more players tend to max out. as the game progresses, especially in S1 Plus, whether if it's your first iteration, second iteration, and going into Season 2, etc., 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 people start maxing out pretty well, and people start do more damage, making it so you can't just get away with having one super tanky commander and one commander that just dishes out a lot of punishment. So if you're running Madeline in a super whale a super whale server, I would recommend you run Garwood as her secondary instead of Nika. Otherwise, you just run her as the standard Madeline, Nika, of course, our favorite infantry march. And this is the talent tree I would recommend you run with her going forward in S1 Plus, because you need to play it a little bit safer, and you can't go the greedy route where you just split between infantry and the tank tree. You need to be very tanky in order to enable your allies in the open field. Bakar is not viable, so never use Bakar in S1 Plus. Outside of Season 1, Bakar is not viable, and if you don't have any of these three commanders for infantry, then don't use infantry flat out. Infantry later on is a very key important role, and we need your players to be strong enough to have those commanders awakened. For Cavalry, nothing much has changed. It's still the standard Bakshi, Emrys, or Emrys Bakshi when it comes to raiding or PvP, with Bakshi being the primary if you're PvPing, and Emrys being the secondary if you are raiding farmers. Nothing much has changed here. Of course, they are, as we mentioned in the video yesterday or a couple of days ago, that Bakshi Emrys is by far the strongest rally march right now when you spec full into the skill tree and you just become a rage engine along with the spring blaze artifact, which is absolutely disgustingly broken, that artifact, and I hope they nerf it somehow, because providing 30% attack with passion when both of those commanders grant passion non-stop is just so disgusting, as it doesn't have cooldown. Alistar, not viable in S1 Plus, not even viable in regular S1, because you can get both Bakshi and Emrys in the gold keys, and they function just perfectly at 5-1-1-1. They fit their roles pretty well, but if you want to become a rally lead with them, of course you need them both awakened. Next up, we got the flying commanders. Now, flying in S1 Plus has kinda crawled its way back into the meta, with the map layout changing, meaning that you need to be more versatile. So Thea has actually found a use. I know, insane! Flying has become useful somehow. I don't know how, but it did. From watching the insane war servers such as 32, 33's clusters, 65, all those servers that have so many ongoing wars every single day, players have figured out a way to make flying commanders work. Of course, you need Thea Craig or Thea Atheist, whether if you are League of Order or you are the Wilderberg. Of course, I've seen some players run the Spring Wardens Eagles as Thea Craig. It works just fine, but you won't need to suffer anymore or punish yourself for that anymore, as we have Frondrel flying into Call of Dragons in the next update in the 1.0.18 update, which should be releasing next month, hopefully, fingers crossed, assuming there are no delays that occur. So for all the flying lovers out there, try to hold on a little bit longer. We're almost a month away from those commanders releasing, and finally we're getting our first flying cavalry commander, which also happens to be a legendary, which makes me hope they release also a legendary flying archer and a legendary flying mage just to complete the set. As for I think that's everything for flying, really. I don't know that much talents for them right now at the time of the recording the video. I'll have to ask around to deliver the best experience for you guys. Of course, I don't like to give advice on stuff I am not as experienced about as I would like to be, so that I am not giving any bad advice or unintentionally harming players, then giving good advice and helping you guys out. And then, which brings us to, in this, she's a replacement, she's a flex pick. You can pick her whatever, preferably with a mage march. If you want to run a third mage march that just debuffs and buffs your allies, you can just run in this pan. Eliana doesn't really have a use outside of merit farming when you are using the Eliana Garwood. I believe that is everything for the pairings and everything related to the meta, which is going on right now in S1 Plus. Of course, guys, if you have different opinions from than me, feel free to share it down in the comments down below. Join my discords. Let's have a discussion about it. I would love to see you all there regardless. Also, we are so close to 2,000 subscribers, so I would appreciate it if you drop that subscribe button and help me reach it. It's going to be a massive milestone for me, as personally, when I first started the channel, I didn't even expect I would get 1,000 subscribers. Now we're approaching 2,000, which is absolutely insane. So thank you guys so much. Hopefully, we're going to try to set up a nice little giveaway when we hit the 2,000 subscriber mark. So be sure to help me reach that so you can participate in the giveaway much faster and have a potential to earn some gift cards. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you like content like this, please be sure to drop a like. Don't forget to subscribe. Join the Meowers Den. The link is in the description, and I will see you in the next video. Meow meow.